All right, so we're sitting down to talk about something that I'm sure a lot of people are very, very interested to learn more about. Dark Souls 3 announced here at E3, big reveal at the Xbox conference. Bandai Namco from Software. You were privy to a pretty lengthy presentation of that game. What were the major points that they hit?
Yeah, somehow I managed to actually spend a lot of time on that. That was awesome. So the main thing I think I want to talk about is it feels like Miyazaki is doing sort of a combination of the best parts of Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and Bloodborne. It was very much a Dark Souls environment, medieval. He talked a lot about a apocalyptic world, but not. So it was still dark, but a little bit different than Dark Souls, and it was back to shield and sword, but also a little bit faster, inspired by Bloodborne. And we're not going to go into all the details here. You can imagine from an hour of presentation and Q&A, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Yeah. But it's like a combination of those things. And he said it a couple of times where he's like, he's going to grab things that I think he liked and that he's heard in feedback that these are things we like that we're going to have in the game. Yeah, medieval. He's also trying to sort of evolve the combat system. So there's also more viable options. So yeah, it's shield and sword, but you can also use a spear. And there's going to be, just like we had in Bloodborne, we had a gun. Now there's going to be bows and I think crossbows. And it's going to be, someone asked at the Q&A, so are you going to be able to do run through only with bow? And he said in theory you are. So it was pretty clear that you're going to have a lot of options of how you're going to do builds, and they're going to evolve that even more. Yeah, showed a lot of cool moves. The way like you could, he started with shield and sword, and then he could change into putting his shield away and then doing two-handed, and then he would do a more powerful attack that could break through a shield. So giving a lot of like choices and tactics with that. Another thing that I thought was really cool is he came up to an area where he talked a little bit about sort of guardians and dragons. So it sounds like there's going to be a little bit with that. We saw that dragon in the beginning, and then we came up to another area where we fought one enemy, came up, and there was like a group of enemies of these skeletons, undead. We saw several areas where they were like praying, and some of them came to attack you. But you see a whole group of enemies, and it's like, okay, this is going to be tough to fight. So instead, he backed off a little bit, ran up some stairs, and there was a dragon there. It's like, okay, I can't fight that either. But he actually got the dragon to kill the other enemies. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with the... Again, like, Bloodborne starts out, one of the first enemies you can run into is one you can't. Like, good players can, but most people won't be able to kill him. And it's still going to be that thing where you're just not going to run through. You're going to have to like look at different enemies, see if you can beat them, and if you can't beat them, think about how you're going to do that.
Very interesting. You talked a lot about the different things that you saw. Did they talk anything about the lore, about the setting, about the story?
I try to get a little bit more in detail with that, and I talked about what inspired him, and he said that was hard, and he didn't want to explain too much, and that's the classical thing from software games. They don't want to explain it; they just sort of want to let the community delve into the lore. But it was, medieval. We saw this area, and one cool thing is actually you can pretty much go what you can see. So we started in one area and it was a huge castle, and then could see like really far away, and we actually ended up over there. But not too much details. There was a little bit, about something with guardians and dragons, and we saw some monsters, and we saw like a boss at the end, but not too many details on the lore. And there's a little bit more than what I'm saying, but I can't remember. Then I want to say them, correctly if I say them. But I want to talk a little bit about the final boss. So we ended up at a boss, and of course it ends with that we died because he doesn't want to show how you beat the boss, but. One thing, again, it's Dark Souls game, but he's grabbing from Bloodborne is how some of those bosses work, where they jump into different stages. So you see this sort of dancer, a huge enemy, but like sort of dancing movement, and he mentioned dancing himself, the way like this huge woman with a flaming sword. And when you do some damage to her, she pulls out another sword that is a different element. So you will see those enemies again, like in Bloodborne, where it's like they evolve in the combat. So it's not like when you've learned the beginning part, you have to adapt to to the second part again. Another thing is the classical thing of you will walk through areas, be dark, you'll have to pull out your torch and then take away your shield, and there'll be enemies, ambushing you, and unfair in that way. Also picked up like Molotovs, and you can sort of, if you pay attention to areas, you can find secrets, you can find, maybe spot the enemies before that are ready to ambush you, and I kill them easily. So very classic from software.
Did they talk anything about multiplayer invading? Is that going to be the same way as in previous games, or?
There wasn't really details on that. There was a lot of those things that I want to hear about that he didn't want to talk about. Yeah. But it's not saying it directly. It sounded like those things would be there because he enjoyed that. I also wanted to hear about like chalice dungeons and stuff, but like they didn't want to confirm anything. But I think for if you look at I guess reviews and forums and stuff, I think if something was popular, I think it'll make it into Dark Souls 3 because that was sort of how he talked about it, and also that he had really enjoyed doing Bloodborne, but that also made him want to go back and do another medieval Dark Souls game. So it's gonna be interesting to see how he's gonna change Dark Souls with. He kept mentioning, apocalyptic world, so how that's going to influence the medieval stuff.
Very exciting. We just got a brief glimpse. You got, longer than you thought,
yeah.
But Dark Souls 3, one of the big highlights of our E3.
And I would say my hands-off game of show, so it looks really great.
All right, that's it. You heard it here.